Now, whoops. Whoa.
Oh. Ran down. Technical difficulties. This is why we have editing. Hi there, and welcome back to another video with Wazegamin Community Arts. Today, I'm joined by the lovely Kay Chapman. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
I'm doing really well. So, Kay, can you tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Yes, I am an abstract artist, and people probably know me primarily for my fluid acrylic artwork, but I do love to collage, and I do teach sometimes at some of the galleries here, and I have taught some classes in fluid acrylic art and also in collaging. So today, I think we're going to be doing some collage trees, and it's something that I enjoy doing on the side. I don't get to do as much as I'd like to do it though.
Very nice. Well, we're definitely going to be getting to do it today, so let's get into it. So what will the viewers who are wanting to do this at home with us need?
Today we're going to be collaging this on an 8x10 canvas. This is just a canvas that right here that is from Dollarama, or you could just use a flat board like this one right here. It doesn't have the wood underneath with the canvas fold over. But today we're going to use this 8x10 canvas. And you're going to need some paper. And I like to use upcycled paper, so we're going to be using an old Manitoba map like this, and we're going to arrange the paper on the canvas. Okay, and then this is going to get glued down, so you'll need some glue. I'm using Elmer's Glue All. You can use any kind of glue. Mod Podge can be used for these projects, and there's some Eileen's glue from the dollar store. That's just $1.25. This is $1.25, so you don't have to go expensive to do this project. The other things you're going to need is a little container for water for your paint. The paint I selected for this project is a Robin's Egg blue color. It's a very light blue-green. The other colors that we're going to use today is just basic black, any kind of black. And then we're going to use some yellow ochre, and this is the artist law, but you can make this color if you want by adding some brown to your yellow. Really, with just these three colors, the black, the ochre, and this, you can make this project. And I'm going to add just a little red at the end for accent. You don't have to do that, but I'm going to do it today so you can learn how to continue to add color to your picture. I'm using found objects today. This is the map from a thrift store. It's a very old Manitoba map. I'm going to say right now, when you get ready to do your canvas or your piece of board, make sure you kind of gauge how much paper that you need. So you can use a magazine paper, you can use wrapping paper, and I'm going to show you some examples. And you're going to want to kind of plan out ahead of time your paper and your color. And what will be our tree trunks is this music paper, which we'll get into in a minute, but you kind of want to plan out what you're going to be doing. And in the end, you can continue to add on to your canvas later, your collage work. I'm going to take this matte paper away for just a minute and talk to you briefly about how good a family project this is for you with your kids right now, since we can't get out together. This is just some dollar store paper that I took, and I just painted it with this cloudless just to see how it would look. And you can see this is the paper and this is the paint. You can see how cool it is for the trees because the black comes through and a little bit of the red and the yellow. And if I put some paper over it, just paper like this, you can see that the little background colors are accented. So you can use wrapping paper you have at home. Here's an old piece of paper that I had. It's an old vintage wrapping paper that was in a throwaway pile. Another one that I have is another old paper, and I've tested it with paint for each one, and it looks pretty good. I think it would work out very nicely and look very kind of antique-y looking. And then if you just had a magazine and you could break it up onto this and glue it down and paint it, it'd be beautiful. And don't forget your paper bags. These make beautiful trees. This is just a paper bag I tore. And if you tear your trees like this and you piece them together, they'll look almost leather or textured when you do this. So a paper bag is a great thing. And you could use the paper bag for the back and the front. So they're just some fun things that you can do. You want to have a ruler on hand, a pencil, just a standard paintbrush. This is just a dollar store paintbrush that I'm going to glue the paper on with. And then you're going to want a brush that's got a fine tip to do the outlining of the trees, because we know that it's beautiful. Aspens and birch trees have these outlines. So you're going to want something with a little point on the end. And here's one that's bigger. If you get into a bigger canvas, you're going to want bigger brushes, of course. Here's another one. And these are all just dollar store brushes. And I'm sorry they're painted. I love my brushes a lot. I use them a lot. They're very used. You're going to want a little piece of paper to draw your brushes on. And as I said, I have my water. I've got some glue right here under this wax paper, and that's just Elmer's Glue All to glue our paper down. And then I've got a little bit of water in this cup. The one thing you don't want to do when we're working is clean your paint brush over here and then come back and use it in the glue, because then you're going to discolor your trees and things. So just this water is for paint. This water is for glue. Okay. We have some other little items. This burlap is just a little piece that I had through some of my thrifting that I do. And if these scissors will cut it right here, this is great for stamping. And we're going to stamp that map when we get it painted. And this is great to make a transference of paper, and we'll dip it in some paint and then we'll stamp it on our paper like this. Here's bubble wrap, and I've got it tinted a little bit so you can see it. Bubble wrap makes good texturing. Another item I have is an old Michael's gift card, yay. And you can line your trees with these if you want. When you're creating a little tree like we are today, this is a little harder to use, but if you decide to go big with a tree, these are great. And I have done some really big trees where this came in handy. And then if you have any little pieces of cardboard, just a little piece of cardboard, any kind, this is off a tissue box. And we're gonna use this for stamping leaves, okay? So that's my list of things, and it's kind of things you can make up at home.
Sounds good to me. Let's get started.
All right, let's get started. I'm going to use this map paper today. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of lay it out a little bit. And then I'm going to take these edges, and I want all these little lines. I don't want this out here on the edge, but I tear it by hand, just like this. And you're going to want it to come over the edge of the canvas. And you can glue that back down later on. But this is just going to come right over. And I just kind of do it in sections like this. Here's another one, and I'm going to avoid this big blue piece because it's not going to give me those lines. I hate taking out the Winnipeg Lake, but it's going to go. So
that's okay. You can take out the Winnipeg Lake. The Winnipeg Lakes had it too good for too long.
Yeah. I do want to show you this one that I did. In the middle, it says, I say Brandon right there in the middle. And over here is Clear Lake. Over in this area here, I have some Wasagamine. And there's Brandon down here. There's Portage La Prairie. So in your map, if you have some places that you're very fond of, no matter where it is, you can always tear those pieces out and put them where you want. That's kind of in the center so you can see what it is. That'll be kind of my little piece of Brandon there. You can have any words you want show up. And I'm just placing these down, and the lines are going to give this its unique character after we paint it. Like I said, a little planning goes a long way with these because you need to know how much paper you're going to use. But if you're at home and you want to do this with your kids, you can use a magazine. And bigger pieces, smaller pieces, anything like that, I'm just going to place them. And they can be all big pieces or they can be all small pieces. It doesn't matter. Keep working at it till I get it where I want it. This is something that can take a while sometimes, and it's fun to do with your family and friends. It's always a fun one that people like to get together and have coffee and cookies and sit and talk while they collage, because there's a little time involved with gluing and putting things down.
If you're doing the project with someone like me, you'll want to have like a jumbo size coffee because you're probably going to be waiting a while while I struggle to get myself sorted out here.
So I'm continuing to tear paper, and I usually don't do them in such small pieces, but this map is not allowing me to tear great big pieces. So I'm gonna do this here, try to get one more big piece out of this and glue it down. I've got my glue in a cup and I've got it ready to go. And I think we'll be okay with this. I may move some of these bigger pieces down because I don't want it to be big pieces in one spot and small pieces in another. So they'll make it
You're
look.
not worried about straight edges or anything like that.
Nope. And actually, the torn pieces look best. The rougher they are, the better. Just make sure they're glued down well. I'm going to tear one more small piece, and I'm going to start gluing this baby down. Okay, so I kind of know this is how I want it, so I always pull it down off of the canvas like this and kind of have it in order, so I know how to put it back on if I'm happy with the way it is. So I try to put it in order of the way I want it. So I've got my brush here, and I've got my little piece of paper, and I'm going to dampen my brush, and I'm going to come in here and get some glue. And you can just go back and forth between the glue and the water. This will help the glue flow better. And I'm going to just start gluing this down just by putting it on the canvas. How are you doing there?
Oh, I'm doing good.
I can't see you, so.
Probably for the best.
And I get under the edges like that. And I'm just going kind of quick. I'm putting this down. Now, a word about paper. Your paper might crinkle up. Don't panic if your paper crinkles. This is okay. It's going to give you a lot of cool texture. As a matter of fact, one of the most popular trees I ever did was a tree that I did the trunks in paper, and it crinkled like crazy, but it gave it great tree texture. So don't be in a panic about that. I'm going to get a little bit more glue here because your glue will go fast. Alrighty. Let's see. Let's do this one over here. I really love to upcycle paper and textiles, fabrics. I forgot how many millions tons of fabric go into the garbage every year, which is just unbelievable to me because, you know, people probably need that clothing. But I kind of feel like if it can go into artwork, then how cool is that it's made into something beautiful and preserved and not gone into the trash. And I think that means a lot to our environment. I am a true tree hugger. I love trees, and I love to go up to Riding Mountain with all the trees. There's not as many here in my neighborhood, so it's kind of a relief for me in the summertime to be able to go up there.
Absolutely. Riding Mountain's beautiful, and I'm not just saying that because that's where the gallery is.
Well, but it's beautiful in the snow too, and you know, it's very well known for its Aspen Forest. Its Aspen Forest there is one of the most famous aspen forests in Canada, and even more reason to collage some aspen trees, birch trees. People call them both, but to me, really in my mind, they're aspen trees with the dark sides, and they're all straight tall together, standing up straight and tall together. You may find that you have some little particles that show up, and you could get a little bare spot like this one right here. Don't panic. It's just paper. It's just glue, paint, and it's all going to turn out beautifully. So this is the fun part, and I'm going to go back and stick a little piece in that hole right there. Now, these outer edges that are kind of coming over, just leave those. When you get done, just glue them down. A lot of these I often seal with glue at the end anyway before I put a finish on them. So, Ty, what projects have you been working on here lately?
Well, I've been doing a lot of these videos, which have been a lot of fun. I get to meet and talk with quite a few artists and makers. I've also been working on some paintings and...
Yes, because you're an artist too.
Yes. But also just because I like to paint.
Oh yeah.
You don't have to be an artist to enjoy painting.
Everyone always tells me, "Oh, I can't do that. I'm not artistic." And I'm like, "Sure you are. Everybody has artistic abilities."
Like if you can cook and you're not a chef, you can do art and not be an artist. That's,
That's right. Well, I love that you're doing this project during the pandemic because I think it's important for people that can't get out or don't feel comfortable being out right now to have something to do like this. And I think this is a great project you can do at home with any kind of found objects and things. It's really great that you guys are doing this program. I love it.
Well, and I'm glad to hear that. And the thing is, this is a trying time. It's been psychologically stressful for everyone. But if there's one thing that I think that is good that's kind of come out of this, is that there's been a lot of online programs and services suddenly made available that I think should have been available a long time ago, and stuff like this, which is like, making stuff more available and acknowledging some of the people that don't, people with disabilities, people that just can't get able to get out, bring the world a little closer to them. And the real shame is that it took this to prompt us to actually do that.
And I think it's, kind of in a way, it's a way of helping take care of our community so they don't have to get out and you can be at home and do a project. And I think this is a great project. So let this dry for just a second. If you have a hair dryer, this is a good time. Check your edges. I see I've got a few edges here. If you've got a hair dryer, you can use that. Let's see how dry it is. Let me get in the light. I think we can paint. All you need now is your paint. So I have a little bit of palette paper right here, and I'm just going to set it to the side, and I'm going to I cleaned this brush really good, and I'm going to clean it again over here, and I'm going to put my paint on this palette paper, and I've got a little paper towel to dab my brush in. Shake these inexpensive paints up good. They're a little chalky. They don't have a good pigmentation, so make sure you shake it good when you get ready to use it, okay? And I'm just going to put some there. You'll probably need more. These little orange lines on this map are going to come through here and show up really beautifully. And I'm just going to start up here in this corner, and I'm going to paint. Oh, and look at it already. It's showing off. Look at the lines where the torn paper is showing up. That's going to be really pretty. I don't want it to be too thick, and I don't want it to be too thin. I want the map to show through just a little bit. So I just added a little bit of water to my paint right there. I want it to be covered up just enough that you can see it, and it's just kind of an illusion that there's something under there. I put one thin coat down. You can go over it again if your paint does not cover up well. If it looks like it's too heavy, just take a paper towel and just come down and just touch it and bring it up, okay? And I'm just going to keep brushing this in.
Sorry, I'm so concentrated. I'm like,
Uh,
I gotta get this good.
Sometimes it takes a little while to do these projects, but it's worth it. This is something that you can, like I said, keep adding to. I'm going to just kind of hold this back and forth in the light, and you can see the line starting to kind of form right here. And this is what's going to make your collage so cool. This is what people love, is see that texture, and it's going to dry. And here's a little crinkling starting. Don't get excited. That's good. Now, if you have a little of the cloudless left on the side, just leave it, because we're going to use that to mix in to our black paint at the very end. So just leave that paint right there. All right, I'm going to let mine dry for a second.
So Kay, what have you been up to?
I have been pouring paint like crazy, and I have basically become a chemistry lab in my studio because I've been doing pearl pours, and they're very complex, and they take a lot of paint and a lot of different types of materials to go pouring mediums in them. So yes, I've been pouring a lot, and I've been on Instagram a lot. My following has grown dramatically on there, so it's doing very well. They're complex pours is what I would say. They're not just pouring paint out of a cup. So I've been doing that, and I've been talking to my daughters at home. I miss them so much, and I can't go home to see them right now. I'm in the same boat as everybody else. So, oh, and we have a giant new puppy. So he takes up a lot of time, a lot of training. He's a good boy.
Nice. What's his name?
Cooper.
Aww.
Cooper, we think he's a shepherd mix, but we think he might be an Anatolian shepherd.
Oh, I love that.
So,
nice.
now, while this is drying, I'm going to get some paper to make your tree. So this is the paper I chose, and the reason why I like to use some of these old hymnals and things like that is I know that if someone doesn't buy them or at the thrift store, they're just going to get trashed. So I love preserving them in paper, and I also use them under collage projects, under abstract art sometimes for texture, but it just gives me a comfort to know that they're there. But the other thing about old sheet music is the paper is soft and it will crinkle. And the other thing is it's going to create a nice tree for you. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my trees and I'm going to just line them up in order like this. And I'm going, before we do another thing, I'm just going to kind of guesstimate how much I need for each tree. If you have a wide piece like this one, switch it out and let it be the base of the tree. But as we know, aspens, people that live around here know that they're just kind of straight up and down trees. So I often make the trees the same size. Sometimes I make them different sizes. You just don't want them to be too much of a difference. You don't want them to be one really big and one really little. Aspens and birch are all kind of the same size. Okay, so what I do is I'm going to get them all laid out just like this, and I've cut them all about the same width. And what I'm going to do now is get them positioned how I want. Like I want this one to go a little bit more this direction. I want them to go I don't want them to be too catty corner. So the next thing I do, once I get the trees where I want them, is I take my little pencil right here and I just make a little tiny mark for each piece of the trunk so I know where the tree goes, okay? So then I'll take the paper and I'll stack it up in order, then I'll know where that tree goes, okay? And I'm just making a little mark, and nobody's gonna see this. And you might have to kind of look for it when we do stamping, but it's okay. You'll kind of know where the tree is. You can make a long line if you want. Now, because I'm right-handed, what I would suggest if you're right-handed, work left to right, because that will keep you from swiping paint over a tree or doing something like that. So that's tree number one. And I take the bottom part and I put it on the bottom, and I take the middle and I set it up there, and that one. And this is not that big of a deal, but it will kind of help you stay a little bit more organized. And I'm just stacking the trees to the side. Okay. And I have a little mark. I'll probably have trouble finding it in a little bit, but you can still freehand your trees on here. You might decide you don't want them exactly in that same position when you get ready to put the trees down. The next part we're going to do is with the yellow ochre. And we're going to get the yellow ochre paint, and I'm going to put some down right here. I do kind of need to spread it out a little bit, so I'm just going to take a brush and spread it out a little bit. We're going to do what is called a little stamping or paint transference using this fabric. I'm going to pull this paint down and make myself a little flat area. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to take the part of the burlap right here, and I'm going to just go down and pick up some paint just like this. Okay, and I'm going to come up here and I'm going to stamp my map, and I'm going to continue to pull this paint down into this little area, and I'm going to stamp it. And that looks so pretty. I love it. And that yellow, see how it goes so well with the lines of the map that are underneath. So I'm just going right here and I'm stamping it. It's going to get on your fingers. It's okay. The paint just comes right off. You can do it thick, light, however you want. I'm just doing a very light stamping. I mentioned the bubble wrap earlier. Here's the bubble wrap, and you're going to want to take the puffy side and you're going to want to put it in the paint, just like this. These are going to make more circular areas. And this might be better like for leaf making, but maybe you just want to do it lightly. I like the burlap stamping better because it matches the pattern of the mat. So I'm just going to lift this off. I just wanted you to see what that looks like. So you decide to use maybe a different kind of paper that might work perfect for you. To me, there are no mistakes in paint, so I'm just going to go over this lightly. It's just paint. You can go over it and go over it and go over it.
Yes, so if you get paint on the floor and your roommate or your parent is mad at you, you know what? You just look at them and say there are no mistakes in art.
Okay, so I'm just stamping this out. Just stamping it and let that little section get a little bit dry. Alrighty, so I've got a little blob right there. I'm going to leave it because that may get covered up with a tree or something like that. Now, it'll dry quickly if you haven't stamped it too hard, like with too much paint. And I'm going to clean this brush out good again. Just make sure if you use the same brush, you clean it good. And I'm going to kind of be hunting for those pencil marks that I made. Okay, so I found my line and I'm just putting down some glue and I'm just going to move it back and forth and I'm going to pull it down a little bit and I'm just going to come over the top. Here's my other line and I'm just going to continue putting my trees down. If you can see your little imaginary marks and you can just make an imaginary line with your glue, like kind of guesstimate it out there. It's not really an imaginary line, but kind of guess where it's at.
Oh, for me it is. I'm fully I'm going with the flow. I'm going to do what the canvas tells me at once.
There you go. Trees aren't perfect in nature, so they're really beautiful and majestic, but you know, trees have bumps and knots and things like that. So these trees are the same. You don't have to be perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna look for my second line and I'm having a hard time seeing that second line. So I'm just gonna do a guess here where it is. If you're guessing, you wanna be careful you make room for all 5 of your trees, okay? All right, so I'm still looking for my little marks. They're hard to see, and I would say you could probably put a heavy mark on your paper when you get ready to lay your trees down. No one's going to know because you're going to go back and make these hatch marks and stamping with the burlap. Don't be afraid to mark your trees. You're probably saying, oh, how does she know where to put that tree? Just make sure you make a mark that's good enough that you can see it. And I'm going to put this one down here and try to get this moving along. But when you're doing this, take your time, enjoy it, enjoy the process of it. And now I'm going to make this tree go this way a little bit more. And I think I see the line here. And you can just lay them down and lay them out first if you want, and then do it. Okay. Glue these on down a little bit more. Okay. Just test your edges, because this is one where you want the edges to be down a little bit, especially where they're joined together on the trunk. All right, so there's my trees right there all glued down, and I'm gonna just get my brush in here and clean it. A word about glue in your brushes. If you don't clean that glue out, that brush isn't gonna be usable. And every brush is of value to me. I don't care how cheap the brush is. If I like the brush, then I'm gonna, clean it out good because I want to use it later. I might be rough on it, but I cleaned the tip out in so I could use it again. Just the word about the glue. Okay, so I'm trimming the top of the trees up there, and now I'm gonna go down here and I'm gonna trim down here. There we go. And that's done. Okay, how are your trees looking there?
Like trees.
Good. That's good. That's a good thing. Okay, so now I'm gonna get my black paint out. And at this point right now, if you see some places you wanna restamp a little bit, this is the time to do it. Just touch it a little bit. I just see some kind of spots that are kind of covered. I'm just going to touch them. Okay, now I'm going to set my stamping materials back there. Now remember what I said. I'm going to work left to right because I'm right-handed. Okay, so I want to do this outer trunk here. And then if I were to start a tree here, and then I don't want to brush my hand back and forth over. So whichever direction is comfortable for you to work, start on one end and work across is what I would suggest. So have you got that little fine line brush?
I do.
Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about this little card. This is one that I saw in an Angela Anderson tutorial. I am going to demo it for you so you can just see it. I'm going to put a little black paint right down here. I'm just going to demonstrate for you how to use this. If you decide to do a bigger tree, you're going to want to take the card and go straight down in this and go back and forth in the paint, just like this, okay? And you can see right there, it makes a line. Okay, so because you've got glued paper This glued paper gives you an edge, and you can actually take this. I'm not going to recommend you do this for these trees because they are small, but it is a way to do the edges and kind of get that knobby look. So you would just take the card and dip it in the paint long ways, just like this, back and forth. And then you would run it along the edge of the tree. It works better when you're doing a great big tree. Today I'm going to suggest this little brush right here. It's got this nice little tip for fine lining, and I'm going to freehand these trees. Okay, so I'm going to get in this black paint, and I've got my water here, and I'm just going to come right up here, and I'm going to start working on this edge, and I'm just going to come right down and just kind of do a straight line. If it's bumpy, that's fine too, because the edges of trees are bumpy. And if you've got a shaky hand, no problem. It's going to give you a textured side. If you want to flare the side of the tree out, you can. All right. Put a little water in there and thin it so it flows easy. And then if you need to turn it upside down, go ahead and come along and edge your tree. And I got a little heavier there, and I'm just going to do the rest of it heavy. So there's the outer edge. And I'm going to do one of these trunks for you and show you how I'm going to finish this one off. And you're going to see why I say work left to right or right to left, depending on which hand you use. Okay, so here we go. Because if there were paint here right now, I would be in it. So just come up here and align your tree. Now, if you go back and look at some of my trees within the hallmark, one of the hallmarks of my trees is that one side will be a bright color. Like I might find the brightest color of teal blue or yellow or something, and that might be the highlight, and I'll highlight one side of the tree or one side of the branches or something like that. Because, you know, I like that abstracted effect. So you can make your trees as down home as you want. It's hard to make these look realistic because we're using bound objects and paper and things like that, but you can make them more abstracted like I do by using an alternating color on the outside. Like for instance, red would be a color that might work on here. And you can cheat and look at the color wheel if you're not familiar and see what works best. Now that's going to need to dry just a little bit. I'm going to do one more tree right here so you'll see what this looks like. And just get the sleeve up a little bit. And I'm just going to come right down. If it's rough, your first go around coming down the tree, don't worry. The trees are going to be a little bumpy. And that's really bumpy. We're going to take that out. Clean your brush if you make a mistake. Come over here and you can just lift it right up. Okay? Just like that. That got away from me. And I'm just going to pick it right up. Okay, so it's gone. I'll come back and do it again. Okay, there we go. Okay, now you'll notice it's a little bumpy and edgy. That's okay. These trees are kind of rustic looking, and that's all right. That's a very good look to go for.
Sorry, I promise I'm still here.
You're just working away, aren't you?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just going to do these two trees right here real quick to give you just a little idea so you don't have to wait going through the whole thing. And sometimes after I do this first line, I go back and I make it even more like this right here, more curvy. Now, I'm going to take a little of this cloudless color right here. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of the black and I'm going to just mix a little in, and I'm going to make this kind of funky gray color. You don't have to go buy white paint. Mixing the colors that you're using, it's a good thing. And I'm making this kind of grayish paint with the cloudless blue mixed with the black. And I'm going to have varying colors of it. Here's some dark and here's some lighter. I'm going to just use it on the edges of the tree. Some people like it really stark, and that's perfect. But I'm just going to come in here and I'm just going to touch along the edges like this. And where there's a few little imperfections, like right there, there's a little gap in the paper, I'm just going to come and touch it with this grayish color.
And what's that doing?
It's just going to make it more realistic. But some people like that really stark contrast with the black paint. And I think it's really important. If you've ever taken a class from Jerry Oliver, I mean, you'll learn the color wheel so well from her. And then, you learn about mixing your paints, and you always want to kind of put that color back into your paint that you're using. So it's nice that we want to do a little lighter color. So why not use the blue and mix a little back in there, get that same color going, because you'll be able to see it in places. It's just going to make it more homogeneous. Okay, so I took it and I just touched it a little bit with the gray here and there, not everywhere. And in the end, I'll probably come back and do a little bit more black. But we all know that the aspen trees and the birch trees are known for their marks. So I'm just going to note where I joined the trees and also where there's already some dark areas. Wherever there's a dark area that's a musical note, you might use that for highlighting. But right now I'm just putting some little hatches just like this. I'm just going very gently in with this tip brush. It's got a little bit of gray in it, and I'm just going up here and I'm just making little marks like this. And then you can come back with some gray if you like, but first let's just do it in black. It'll be easier for you that way. Just do the black first. And here's a spot where you might want to do some in the center, because you know they're not just on the sides. And I am going to paint one tree for you so you can kind of see how it looks with a muted tree. So if you decide you want to paint your trees, you'll know what to do. And I don't want it like left, right. So put a couple here together, and then maybe one in the middle, and then one up here at the top, because they're very irregular. And let me say, if you want to do this whole thing with your finger, you certainly could. You can come in here with the tip of your pinky with some black paint, and you could come in here and you could just touch it just like this, and you could just make perfect marks. They'd just be just right. I mean, I love that. So you could do your tree just like that if you wanted. If your kids are not old enough or they're not comfortable holding a paintbrush, you could just show them to take their pinky and just make that mark with their little finger. I'm going to show you one other method, and that is with the credit card. You would just go pick up some of this paint, and you can just come right in here and you can make a hash mark with this. And these are very desirable too. Go in here just like this and just pull it from the edge into the center, or make a mark in the middle with the credit card. So there's so many ways you can do this. There's something about this little card that's satisfying to use. I don't know what it is, but it is. It just leaves like the perfect kind of scratchy marks. There we go. Now the one thing I am going to do is get some more of the blue, and I'm going to mix it into this black, and I'm going to mix some gray. You know, aspen trees don't have those great big heavy branches like those big live oaks down south. So what I'm going to do is do an edgy little branch coming off here. And these are just freehand. Don't get all hung up trying to make them perfect. These are just little branches that come off the aspens and birches. They're just little, like almost twiggy looking at times. They can come across all the way, or they can just be a little short piece, or you can put two like this, or you can have one kind of coming down. All right, so there's the branches. Now we're going to want to put some leaves on this tree to give it a little effect, and you can use your finger if you like to make the leaves. I'm going to give you some more options just like I did with the others. My favorite thing to do is to use the piece of cardboard right here. And this is just off of a Kleenex box. And I'm just going to tear it, this point right here. I'm just going to tear this at a point, just like this, okay? And I've got myself a little handle, just like that. See it? This is going to make the leaf right here. And we're going to stamp with this, just like we did with the other stuff. Going to reach over and get some paint, and I'm going to stamp some leaves on here, real kind of thick in spots, all right? And you're going to see how this makes the picture pop. And another thing you can do is just stick your pinky in it, and you can come up here and go like this. You can just touch it, and you can make leaves like this. Now, when your tree gets done, if you want your leaves to overlap onto a trunk of a tree, you can certainly do that too, okay? I'm just go ahead and stamp these out with my little pointed piece of cardboard. So you don't have to go do anything expensive. Just look around your house. You have all the things you need to do a tree. Now I know this is the edge here, so I'm gonna kind of watch it here when I get it on the paper, and you kind of have to get it thick to make a little thick mark. There you go. Oh, I like that. Got some leaves going.
Ooh, that's pretty. You're using a much more delicate hand than I'm using.
Well, and you know, sometimes everybody's technique is different, and I always tell people to embrace, you know, if they're heavy-handed with their paint or whatever, I'm like, embrace it. You know, if that's your style, that's your style. You know, and there'll be something that feels right to them, and it makes them feel good. So now I'm going to just go in, and like this one was a little bit round with my pinky, so just give it a little twist up there like it's a leaf. Or you could just simply go in and make a leaf mark. I'm going to do it over here like this with a brush. I like using found objects to do this instead of a brush, because it just gives your tree a little bit more texture and irregularity. And sometimes irregularity is good in a picture. It just doesn't That's the beauty of collaging. It's not perfect. I did want to show people how to highlight their trees a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit of acrylic pearl white. Another hallmark of some of my trees is I like to lighten the trunk. I'm just going to put a real thin coat of this pearl white over it. This is another aspect of, just giving your tree some depth. And you can do this. I did these as they are. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tip this tree out with some red. I'm just going to kind of just barely touch this gold in places, okay? Just to give it a little contrasting factor in this. So I'm just touching it with a little red on here just to give it that little that it needs. You don't want the painting to look too flat. I'm just going to give the trees a little touch of color, and I'm just doing it very squiggled. It doesn't have to be in any particular way, shape, or form. And you don't have to do every one. I'm just kind of touching them on the edges up there. Okay. Now I am going to come around here on this branch, and I'm just going to touch this branch just very slightly with the red, just to bring it home. Okay. And I'm just going to touch it right here. I don't want too much. I just want a little suggestion of red on the limb. All right. You can even touch it on the sides if you want just a little bit. If you want to do some of that little Kay Chapman out there abstractness, you can touch it with that. All right. So we will continue on with these trees, but in the end, you're going to end up with some trees that look like this. This is the map with the stamped burlap, the gold leaves made with a piece of cardboard, the musical notes. Remember, find the paper that's perfect for you. If you'll notice on this, I took words and I put words on the tree. If your tree was bigger, you could put the words across the tree. But I have welcome, loved, blessings, sunbeam, joy, promise, whisper. So that is my tree right there, and I've got Brandon right in the center, and this one is going to get treated the same way. And
we'll be showing the pictures of your finished product and my finished product right now. Wow, they look amazing.
Yay! I appreciate you inviting me on today. I hope that this project brings some joy to people, that it brings family time for them, and maybe just some relief from the worries of our world today, and that we get back to normal. But in the meantime, you'll have a nice project to do till we can all be together again.
I like that. Well, thank you very much, Kay. And before we go, do you have any social media platforms that any interested viewers can find you on?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at KV Chapman Art, and you can find me on Facebook at KV Chapman Art. And right now I'm working on a website. It's not up yet, but you can definitely find all my works on Instagram or Facebook.
And as always, you can contact Wazegamin Community Arts at wazegaminCommunityArts@gmail.com, or you can find us on Instagram and Facebook, just Wazegamin Community Arts. So that is all from me. Once again, thank you so much for doing this with us today, Kay.
It was great. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.